You've been doing the farming thing your whole life? You're multiple generations into this, right?
Second generation.
Second?
Yeah, so uh I've been back on the farm 5 years. I mean, I grew up on the farm and
Okay.
then left for I was gone for like 8 years down in
Okay.
California. So I went to school down there. But yeah, second generation farmer. My dad actually immigrated from Germany
Oh, wow.
over 35 years ago. So kind of settled. He married my mom, who was American. She was from Seattle, and so he kind of discovered the Northwest and sold the little farm over there and kind of started here. And it's kind of bad time to be farming, good time to have opportunities to buy land. And so he kind of just started small and kind of found this area just east of
Mm-hmm.
Moses Lake that was kind of starting developing. And yeah, it's grown quite a bit since he took it over like 35 years ago. So yeah, my brother and I have been back, I think, yeah, 5 6 years now.
So
um,
you and your brother are in the farming operation now, but had both kind of left the farm.
yeah, yeah, we actually went to the same school down in California. And Uh, we weren't studying ag, so it's kind of a weird. My dad was trying to figure out what to do with the farm, how to transition out of it himself, while hoping to get some family back. But at the time, I mean, we weren't studying ag, so it's both studied business, which proved to be really
Hmm.
helpful. But it's
Yeah, for
still,
sure.
it's definitely. I mean, you gotta know your stuff, like ag agronomy wise, if you wanna be successful. So that's been the steepest learning curve. I enjoy the business side. That it's kind of both, but yeah, it's farming is just a lot of experience, just year over year knowledge gain. But yeah, it's nice to have some of the theory behind it, and I've kind of supplement it with classes and ag
Yeah.
classes here and there. But
So do you wish that you would have gone to school
I don't know. I
for
mean,
agronomy or farm, something in
yeah,
agriculture?
in some ways, yeah. I mean, I wish I would have, but then, I mean, it's like a counterfactual. You go back and what if? I mean, I met my wife there, some of my best friends, awesome experiences that
Yeah.
shaped who I am now. And uh, so,
So
from an
what
education standpoint, yeah.
so
But
what school did you go to down there?
Biola University, it's
Okay.
kind of a ssmaller
Yeah.
conservative Christian university down there.
So what was your plan at that point? Like what were you wanting to
I
do?
I didn't know. I went. I was 2 years undecided
Hmm.
down there, like trying to figure it out. And I mean, yeah, farming. I mean, you've heard it before. It's always like in the back of your mind if you've grown up on it. It's kind of in your blood. So I mean, even you didn't go back to the farm, but you're still involved in
Right.
ag.
Right.
So always in the back of my mind. Even going into business, still in the back of my mind, like, oh, at least the farm's a business. And even after post college, I'm going into like food type businesses. So even if it was more corporate, but it's still kind of the food direction with maybe the idea of going back one day. And
Because you knew
um,
about that stuff,
yeah,
right?
yeah. I
So
mean,
when you were a kid, what was your dad doing farming wise? Like how big was the farm? What was he farming at that point?
I mean, yeah. Every year it seemed like he was growing. I mean, potatoes is kind of the mainstay of the farm, and
Hmm.
that's where a lot of the growth came from. I mean, he didn't farm any potatoes in Germany, so he worked for a farm west of town for years, just kind of learning the ropes, this area. And
Yeah.
then he bought one field and then another field, and then at some point, I think he rented out his ground, and somebody else farmed potatoes on his ground, and he's just, I think, standing by the side of the field one day is like, I could do that. Like,
Yeah.
I'm gonna, like, this is ridiculous. Somebody coming into my field and growing a beautiful spud crop, like, and again, a lot of the principles in ag are the same. Potatoes is a whole different level than like wheat, for example. But no, he's a good farmer. He had the educational background from Germany, and he was good at what he did. So
Yeah, that family history is fascinating. What you said he did farm in Germany as
yeah,
well?
yeah, he did. And I mean, have you ever been over there? I mean, it's all the land is farmed. There's not a lot of new development. It's like generations of farms that have been kind of held together, and they're all small and kind of broken up. There's not a lot of big farms, not a lot of opportunity for him. And he's very,
Mm.
I think, entrepreneurial, risk taker. There
Yeah.
wasn't that there, like any room to grow. I mean, he had in those times it was an okay farm, but like for our standards, it was like one field's worth. It's like 130 acres, and that was big over there. And
Yeah.
so I think being exposed here, marrying my mom, coming over here, he's like, dang, there's a lot of room to grow here.
Yeah.
And like I said, the farming wasn't great. I mean, wheat prices at like $2. I mean, it was kind of time to get in, even though you weren't making a ton of money. It was people were going broke, and so it was kind of combination of good timing, luck, skill, being an opportunist and risk taker.
So how did he meet? You said your mom's from Seattle.
Yeah.
How did he meet her? How did that all go down?
She was an exchange student, so she was
Really?
over there and actually in a village like 20 minutes away from where he grew up. And I don't actually think they met there. I think they met in Vienna somehow randomly. So that's where they met, connected there, and then I think after that they're like, oh well, I don't know if they ever made the connection that she was staying. Like they must have made some kind of connection.
Yeah.
Because when they went back, that's when they kind of hit it off, and kind of a longer engagement back and forth, and then eventually came back here and got married. And actually my older sister was born over there, and then a few months after she was born, they came back and settled here permanently.
So do you speak German?
Oh man, I used to be pretty good at it,
Yeah.
and no,
Yeah.
I should have taken Spanish, but
Yeah.
no, I went to language school over there for a bit. We were always going over there pretty much every other year or so.
Quite a bit of family back in Germany still that you're
It
connected
was mostly
with?
my grandma lived over there. He only had one sister. They only had one kid. So not a huge extended family. It was just when my grandma was still alive, we'd go back over there. But yeah, not as much anymore.
So you grow up around him, starting to grow this farm. He's an outside the box thinker, trying to, do something different, bigger, better, and it was all potatoes when you were a kid, or was he already branching out into other stuff too? Because you guys do all kinds of stuff.
Yeah,
now, right?
and potatoes, especially if you own the ground, you gotta rotate it. So you're doing potatoes, let's say every 4 years. So you're doing other crops in between.
Right.
That's just the big one that takes most of the financial risk and time, money, people. So he was doing wheat, corn, things to rotate around
Yeah.
it. So, but yeah, now we've delved into organics, a lot of forage crops. Yeah, probably 15 different crops that we do. I mean, most of it again is potatoes, so it's all kind of rotating around that for the most part. But
Growing up here, what was it like moving down to basically LA, where your school was?
It was a big change. I mean, but that's part of the allure of, I mean, growing up in a small town and wanting to figure things out and see the big city. And I don't know, I was into sports like high school, so I got to play soccer down there, and I don't know, I had the beach and tons of people, and it was just different. And my sister had gone there, so I kind of was exposed to it and knew what to expect and knew it was a good school. And again, I didn't know I wanted to be a farmer, so it wasn't like, oh, I'm going to go to WSU or something. So
Right.
Yeah, it was good. It was, the biggest change probably happened when we had our first kid. So that was kind of the game changer. I loved my job. We liked being down there, had a lot of friends, community, but then you have a kid there and sit in this tiny little house that's way overpriced, commuting an hour and a half every day to work. And it just hits you like, what am I doing here? Like, I don't want to raise a family here. So it kind of takes that, I think, a little bit for some people to go out and experience that before coming back. So definitely appreciate it a lot more. And you have a different boss. You work for a different company. You get I don't know, you learn a lot as opposed to just coming straight back. So
Yeah.
definitely appreciate it a lot more.
What was it like making that decision? Like, okay, we're gonna pack up, we're gonna move back to the farm.
So my brother actually moved back a year before, so he was kind of the test case. Like, he's moving back. I'll kind of keep an eye on how he's doing, how he's liking it, and so that definitely definitely helped because it's definitely a big move. But again, after having a kid and more kids, you want to kind of be close to family. You want to be close to grandparents and have
Yeah.
the free babysitting and the community support. And yeah, you start thinking long term, and it made sense from and just way of life. Like I love working outside and with my hands, and but then you got the challenges of the business side, and I can kind of bring my business experience to it
Yeah.
too. So um, yeah, it was a little bit of a leap of faith, but also it's home. Like
Yeah.
it's not crazy. Like a lot of people move all over the country into new places, and this wasn't a new place. It was familiar, so it wasn't hard.
How was it for your dad? I mean, when you tell him, "Hey, yeah, I want to come back to the farm," was he pumped about that? Was he like, "Well, you got to kind of prove yourself"? I know that's how my dad would be.
Yeah, I mean, he's pumped in his own way. I mean, he's German. He's stoic. He's he was pretty excited. You could tell he was
Yeah.
pretty happy. I mean, he worked so hard to build this up, and I mean, I could see you get up in age and you're thinking about legacy and what am I passing on, and
Yeah.
built it up for what? Like, I mean, he was wanting to kind of retire and he got into flying, and so he was doing a lot of that. So um, he was looking for definitely the next generation to step up. So it actually all four of us kids had at some point been kind of all over the country, and then we all kind of came back. Right now, all of us are either in town or my sister's an hour away, but she was an accountant. She was a CPA down in LA, and then eventually came back to the farm for a year before getting married. So she was kind of accounting. So she was in the farm, and then um, so yeah, kind of all everybody's away, and then within like 2 years, everybody's back. So I think they were pretty happy about that. And then of course all the grandkids come, and we were the first one to have a kid, and within well, he's now 7, and now there's 14 grandkids. So it just
Wow.
yeah, no, there's something. I don't know if it's just because you come back to a small town and you got the family element, you got the support structure, and let's have kids. And
Yeah.
you go down to the city and 1, 2 kids maybe per family, if
Yeah,
that.
for
So
sure.
it's definitely easier to have bigger families and get that support.
So, how many
Um,
kids do you have?
I got 4.
4 kids.
Sister has 5, brother has 3, youngest sister has 2.
Just sounds tiring to have that many children running around.
Yeah,
I have 2, but
yeah, yeah. No, it's. I mean, I, I mean, I tell my mom or my wife, she works way harder than I do. I mean, it's
yeah.
I couldn't do it. So it's kind of up to her if we have any more, because she's the one putting in the long days, and I come home, I got to play with them, and she's the one dealing with all the fights and cooking, cleaning,
Mm.
laundry, all that stuff. So pretty amazing what mothers, yeah, they stay at home mothers even. I mean, they work hard, so but it's fun. I love it. Love being a dad, and yeah, you can't imagine life without them.
So you come back to the farm. What does your dad have you do right away? Because on one hand, it's like, well, you're new here, but on the other hand, you're coming in with a business degree and business experience.
Right.
Does he throw you in a tractor, or does he say, get in the office and you're now going to be, dealing with our, business dealings and things like that?
Yeah, I think a little bit of both. I think, yeah, it's hard because at least I was used to kind of, yeah, that corporate type life. And I mean, making big decisions or at least being part of them. And then kind of starting on the bottom a little bit. I mean, I did a little bit of tractor work. I mean, I did most tractor like high school and
Yeah.
harvest and all that. So I had some experience there, um, but yeah, definitely kind of grunt doing stuff that like, we have high schoolers doing now or interns. And so you kind of do all that for the first couple of years, and kind of getting your feet wet there. Yeah, it was kind of frustrating. It's like, I should be doing a lot more, but it's also kind of laying a foundation and kind of learning a little bit of everything.
Yeah.
So it's kind of that tension of, yeah, wanting to move up quick, but I mean, you can only move up having that like ground layer of experience, kind of doing everything. So yeah, and it's also a big farm now, so it's not like I'm coming back and having to do everything. I mean, we have awesome tractor drivers that are, I mean, that's all they do. They sit on a tractor all day and they're really good at it. And
Yeah.
for me to come, they don't necessarily need me to come in and do it, as opposed to just a kind of a father son operation where you're
Right.
coming in like, no, sorry, you're doing everything. Like,
Yeah.
so no, it's a lot to. I feel like I still have a ton to learn. I'm already 6 years into this, and in some ways I'm still scratching the surface on a lot of stuff. But
Interesting. You come from the corporate world. A lot of people say that, well, family farming doesn't really exist. They're all big corporate farms. Having come from the corporate world, what's your reaction to that? Now being in this operation, it's big. You guys farm a lot of acres, got a lot of employees,
yeah,
but is it the same as like working for a corporation?
no, not at all, not at all. No, I mean, yeah, just even you're stuck in an office all day. You're all dressed up. I mean, it's you got meeting after meeting, and you're sitting in front of a computer doing Excel spreadsheets, and there's still a little bit of that here, but it's uh, not not the same at all. Especially for a big farm, it feels like a family operation. We got good farm managers and hopefully some amount of like organizational structure, but
Right.
it's not the same deal. I mean, we're we're big. We got 50 full-time employees, but I think in the corporate world, that's pretty small for
Yeah.
most big corporations. So yeah,
How many acres do you farm between all the different crops you guys have?
probably around 10,000.
A lot of people can't. Even for me, coming from Western Washington farming, which is so much smaller, it's more the size of what you were talking about your dad doing
Right.
in Germany,
Yeah.
right? That's hard for me to fathom. But then for you to explain, no, it's still like a family. It's run by the family. Yeah, you have 50 employees, but compared to a big corporation, like you say, that's nothing.
Yeah.
What's the ethos of the company? Like when I came in here, I'm seeing signs all over, like, with COVID going on and like, thanks, thanks for what you do. Essential farm employees. Seems to be a really upbeat, positive kind of vibe you guys have here.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, I'd like to think so. I mean, hopefully it starts with leadership and there's good leaders kind of setting the tone. I mean, farmers by nature have to be optimists, I think,
Hmm.
just to keep coming back year after
Yeah.
year. So there's definitely a positive energy, I think, most of the time. And uh, yeah, I think all the COVID stuff, I don't know, in some ways it it's helped, I think, with the perception of farmers. I think if people went to the grocery store and then all of a sudden they're not seeing food on the shelves, I think they start to, it's just never happened before. I think most people
Yeah.
think food, I don't know, grows like in the groceries. I don't know. I don't know
Yeah.
where they think their food comes from, but as soon as it's not there, then they start to wonder like, oh, like food's a big deal. And then you trace it back to who's growing it and where it's coming from. And I think hopefully there's more of a appreciation for who grows it and supply chains and distribution centers that can get it to you. And but yeah, it's definitely essential. It's definitely affected our industry for sure.
Yeah.
But no, I think our folks done a good job of trying to be safe and be smart about how we're within 6 feet of each other
Yeah.
and doing trying to. I don't know if you saw the guy when you first came in. He was cleaning doorknobs and just trying
Yeah.
to keep things clean. And um, in my mind, just like common sense stuff that maybe we should probably do normally.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's all the COVID stuff. For us, it was nice because we weren't all that affected. Like I got plenty of people that are out of work and sitting at home, and no, we were busy. I
Yeah.
didn't really feel the effects too much, which is nice.
Plus, you have space. You don't all have to be crowded together in an office most of the time,
Yep.
right?
Yeah. Farming by nature is socially distant, so
Yeah.
which I prefer.
We've been hearing a lot, though, about how brutal COVID has been for a lot of different farm markets, meat, dairy, milk being dumped, and and then also potatoes, and especially here in Washington State, other places too, but I know here in Washington State, we heard stories of, potatoes with nowhere to go. How's that hit you guys?
It's definitely affected us. So on kind of two fronts, it kind of hit during planting, which is we're northern basin, so we're a little later planting. So when we get the news, we hadn't even started planting yet. So we were able to. I mean, you still have a quarter to third of your costs in the field already before you even plant the seed. So we did get cut some of our acres, and these processors said, "Hey, you got to cut, let's say 10% of your acres," and so we got to go out and try to find stuff that's what can we cut that's doesn't have too much money into it. But I mean, those are real dollars that have been spent that have basically gone away. But luckily, we had some landlords that were gracious enough to either let us plant something else or just say, "Hey, well, you can come back next year and grow." So, but yeah,
Well,
I've heard numbers up to 50% on average. Some guys getting cut, some guys 100% on some of those direct guys that go right from the field to the plant. So that
wow.
so they cut the acres for next year. So this is 2020 crop, but you still have 2019 crop in storage. So we still have quite a bit from the fall in storage, and so that was the other concern. We've heard guys that got basically left. I mean, their potatoes got left in storage, saying, "Hey, we don't want these anymore. Figure out what to do with them." So that had me more concerned because when you don't plant them, okay, you eat some of the cost, but some stuff that's in storage, all those are full cost potatoes right there sitting, and if they don't take those, you're definitely in a world of hurt. And our processors told us you're just going to store them later. So by the time we start harvest this fall, we might still have potatoes from last year in there.
How long can you store potatoes, and they'll still be good?
I think if you have good storage and they're good spuds, you can go a year or more.
It's amazing.
We don't.
That's the cool
typically
part
do
about
that.
potatoes,
Yeah,
right?
yeah. In that way, yeah, we're lucky. It's not like the leafy greens or like the highly
Right.
perishable stuff, mushrooms.
You have days, if not hours, sometimes to get things done with those things. So I'm thinking about that though, like if they're cutting what they're going to have you plant, say now, well, those are potatoes that will be eaten next year, right? So, and let's hope that we aren't having, panic buying ups and downs and restaurants closed and all this disruption at this time next year. Even though, who knows, but it's looking more and more unlikely that we'll have that worst case scenario. I guess, how do you know how much less to plant now when in theory you should plant just as much as you have in the past for the next year?
Yeah, so we're all contracted potatoes. We don't really do anything on the open market. So it's kind of the processor who we sell our potatoes to that dictates. I mean, they are the big companies and they're trying to do their best to forecast, hey, what's this going to look like in a year from now and what are French fry sales going to be? And so they're the ones kind of, I mean, in my mind, they're guessing as much as we are what it's going to be. And so I think they were trying to be conservative and they did not want to go long. And so that's why there was definitely a drop off in demand. Obviously restaurants close, not as many potatoes, French fries. I mean, do you cook French fries at home? I mean, not many people do that. So if you're not going out, there is definitely a demand loss there. But yeah, the big question is for next year, did they kind of screw themselves by shorting planting, and then all of a sudden demand picks up and they're short product? So no, that's kind of my prediction because I feel like there's a lot of overreactions happening with COVID, and people want to return to normal. People want to go out and eat French fries and have a burger, and so my guess is they're going to be short, which in some ways is good for us. We'll see if it reflects in the price. It usually doesn't, but it's better than being long, I guess, for us.
To answer your question, yes, I do sometimes make French fries at home.
Nice.
I found an old-fashioned, I think it was in an antique store, an old-fashioned potato like fry cutter. Just a little plunger thing,
Yeah.
kind of like a those can crusher things, except it plunges the
Nice.
spud through a like a waffle shaped
Right.
knife.
Right.
And yeah, it's pretty awesome. I think I was thinking about that when this COVID thing was happening, and I heard about the problems in the potato markets. It dawned on me, it's like, yeah, most people don't make French fries at home, but they should,
Yeah.
because they're awesome, and
Yeah.
it's kind
Yeah.
of a fun thing to do.
Yeah. No, if it was, I've heard of like air fryers, and I
Yeah.
mean, people don't have typically deep fryers in their house, but there's different ways of doing it, and um, but the fresh market definitely, people definitely stocked up on potatoes. It
Yeah.
just wasn't the French fried kind.
So what happened to all those potatoes, and is happening, I guess, if there's still some left that there wasn't a market for? What do you do in that situation? I know like the Potato Commission was doing some pretty big events, even like at the Tacoma Dome, getting potatoes to people and stuff. There was some kind of outside the box thinking going on, I know.
Yeah, but it's still not making that much of a difference. I mean, I've heard numbers of as much as 1 billion potatoes that they're trying to get rid of, and I
Man.
think they've gotten rid of a few million. I mean, which sounds like it is a lot. It's kind of a drop in the bucket compared to what they really need to get rid of. So I don't know what they're gonna do. I mean, worst case, it goes to the cows, but the cows can only eat so many potatoes, I suppose.
Yeah.
Then I don't know. It's gonna hurt a lot of guys.
Yeah, are there potato operations that'll be forced out of business by this whole thing?
I would imagine so, but I don't know. Guys have survived other stuff, and hopefully their banks are lenient with them. But I don't know. I mean, you hate to rely on like federal like bailouts, but I don't know. Some of the federal relief programs haven't really touched potatoes too much, so they kind of need to get that sorted out and then figure out the guys that actually need it, and hopefully they can stay afloat. But yeah, I would imagine it's gonna hurt some guys.
So what the potatoes you guys grow, what do they go to? Like French fries, food service kind of stuff. What else? I mean, are they used for
I think pretty much
basically
all
anything?
French fries and probably hash browns. So the plant down the road is who we sell our potatoes to, and that's Simplot, and that's primarily like an export plant. So being
Mm,
in the Northwest, close to the port, uh, biggest market being Japan,
mm,
kind of East Asia. A lot of stuff gets exported that way.
mm,
So McDonald's type spec fry is what
mm-hmm.
they're going for.
What does that mean, spec fry?
Like the McDonald's is kind of the gold standard. Like they have really tight specs for.
Mm,
I mean, they want every
the
fry obviously
perfect
to look
potato.
to look the same, and so you need pretty high quality. It has to meet all the quality attributes for them to be able to ship it there. And East Asia, Japanese kind of culture, their specs a little higher, harder to meet than most places. So
Yeah. All this talk about market disruption and stuff with COVID challenges takes me back to your comment about farmers being optimists. And it also makes me think of your background in corporate business. Some of these risks and difficult situations that farmers end up in trying to grow food, like would a corporation even do takes, make some of those moves that you see farmers saying, no, we're going to go for it, even though, we've lost money for a few years, but we think there's light at the end of the tunnel.
yeah, it's an interesting question. I mean, because even corporations, I mean, there's all sorts of ways to take risk. A lot of corporations, at least I kind of felt that way. I mean, you're not a lot of times you're not the one necessarily taking the risk. I mean, you got a good salary. Sometimes you might have stock options, but you're not necessarily the one. At least where I was at, I was kind of working for a big restaurant chain.
Mm,
It was the franchisees. It was the folks that are investing a bunch of money that were the ones risking a lot and potentially making a lot. I mean, the corporate, when you're more of a cog in the machine a little bit. You're not as, I think they're a little more risk averse.
mhm.
When it comes to farming, yeah, I think there's something about being tied to the land, and that rootedness that makes you or gives you the ability to weather stuff and to not just or there's a longevity to it that's worth seeing through as opposed to something like, hey, I'm gonna build this house or I'm gonna spec it out and see if I can take a gamble. Well, if it doesn't work out, I'm gonna give the keys to the bank and move on to the next thing. I mean,
Right.
your land, your livelihood, and maybe there's generations, there's history, there's memories there. There's something about that that I think, yeah, maybe makes you take the long view and investing in it and saying I'm gonna go through some of those bad years and I'm not just it's my land, it's where I grew up, it's many cases my parents or grandparents are buried here, it's where I want to raise my kids. It's more, yeah, it's not just a job that, oh, I'm gonna risk my future. I mean, yeah, plenty of places people go out and risk and maybe they have to declare bankruptcy and then move on to the next thing like that. Not farmers as much, and I don't know the statistics on that,
Right.
but that's my general sense now that I'm on the farm. You know, raise your kids here, and it's a way of life. It's not just oh a passive investment that I'm just going to invest like stock market. Like I have I have skin in the game, but it's nothing to do with my day to day reality with
Not your whole
family
life.
and
Yeah.
tradition, and so maybe. Yeah.
I just
Little
know
speculation
I
there, but
often ask farmers, because times can often be tough for farmers. It's not huge margin stuff. It's, it's hard work. So then the question sometimes is, well, why do farmers keep doing it? You'll see these farmers take losses sometimes year after year. It's like, why do you keep doing it? But I think what you're explaining there kind of gets at some of the answer, that there's more to the equation than just the dollars.
yeah, yeah. I mean, you kind of need in any business. Yeah, you have to make money to keep operating, and you can only go so long with the equity of your land, or before runs out if you're not doing a good job, or if the markets don't allow you to succeed. But um, yeah, I think farmers, I think they love what they do. I think there's it's not just this business that I've invested in that can be here one day and gone the next. I mean, I think they love it. They're passionate about it. It's typically, yeah, tied with family, and um, I think they like being on a tractor. I think they like touching the dirt, and it's physical. It's something you can stand on. And there's something kind of romantic, fulfilling about like seeing something from start to finish like that, where you're kind of stewarding, kind of a co-operator with the land, with nature, with there's something kind of beautiful about even being dependent on weather, and um, you definitely play a role, but you're not in control. I mean, you do as much as you can do, but at some point, like, yeah, there's outside external things that dictate your future, and but it's fun come harvest time after a year of planning and trying to do everything right, and weather cooperates, and you get to kind of see harvest all. I mean, kind of standard cliche, like reap what you sow and see the fruits of your labor. I mean,
Yeah.
it's a cliche for a reason. There's something, yeah, kind of romantic and beautiful about it.
What's the secret to growing awesome potatoes?
Oh man.
I mean, what's even
Oh.
just the process in a nutshell for people who don't know how potatoes are grown?
Uh,
Like you plant them from
you plant them
basically
from
pieces of other
pea
potatoes.
seed. Yeah, so it's pretty amazing when you get into the seed piece of it, because I mean that seed is a third generation seed, so it's like 3 years ago they started with like a nuclear like kind of stem, and then grew tiny seed from that, and then another generation of seed from that, and then so it's a long process even just to get the seed, and that's a big deal too, because there's certain regions, Montana, someplace in Idaho, Canada, that grow really good seed that aren't infected, don't have a lot of disease. So it's a really big deal where you get your seed, and yeah, that's the first big part of it is getting good seed, doing a good job planting. It's a lot more complicated than just going down the road and getting some wheat seed or
Right.
corn seed or something like that. So it's a pretty, you have to do a lot of research. You have to a lot more. I mean, and then you got to cut it. So it's a whole. I mean, for 4 or 5 weeks, we have a whole bay that's like a little mini factory in there. That's conveyors and belts and cutting equipment and people on the line taking bad seed out. I mean, it's a whole process just to get the seed ready to put in the ground.
So they get the actual full-size seed potatoes and then cut them into pieces.
Yeah,
Because
so
you can get like multiple plants out of one
Right.
potato that way.
Right. Your seed cost would be astronomical if you're going big seed. So you're going for about 2.5 ounces average. That's what we go for anyway. And but obviously potatoes, they come in all sorts of shapes and sizes. So you're trying to do your best to cut them down either once or twice to get them in that range.
Because the key is they need at least a couple of eyes on them, because it's those
Exactly.
eyes on the potato.
Yeah.
Like people who leave a potato. Say a potato falls out of the garbage can and sits under the sink like it has in my house once or twice, and it starts to grow, and
Yeah.
yeah, there's the process. That's what you guys do.
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, you want eyes on there. If you don't have eyes, you're just planting just a little piece of potato that's not going to do anything. So, but yeah, about 2.5 ounces will get you plenty of eyes, and you'll be good. But so yeah, it's a long. We plant in April and pretty much the whole month, and then it's a long growing season. We start harvest September 15th usually and go for a solid month. So it's one of our definitely longer crops. Um, and yeah, it just takes a lot of babysitting. I think that's not necessarily a secret, but I think the key is you're just always checking it. I mean, you just gotta babysit. I've heard it said the most important thing you could put in the field, like the most important input, is either your shadow, your boots, or I mean, just being there. It's not a special fertilizer, which I mean, you got to get all that stuff right, but you need to be in there. I mean, moisture management's huge. Um, but yeah,
So you got to irrigate a lot
yeah,
to keep them going.
they take a lot of water. I mean, they some people say 30 inches is
Mhm.
of water per year, which is on the higher end versus wheat. I could do 17 inches and be fine. So it's definitely one of the higher usages of water in terms of our cropping systems that we use. So
So that's what you have those big circles for.
Yep.
With the overhead irrigation.
yeah, we only get like 8 or 9 inches of rain here, so we're
Mhm.
absolutely dependent on canal systems, wells to produce enough water for all that. So
Yeah, that's what I was going to ask. Where does that water come from here? Like if you have those sprinklers in a big pivot, one of those big circle irrigators that goes around, where's that water coming from? Is that from a well that's underneath that
yeah,
irrigator?
couple different sources. So we got a canal that runs close to our farm, so we'll pull out of there for some ground, and then we got deep wells for some of it too. So kind of a combination between those two things is
And
our
out
source of
here, where
water.
does the water in the canal come from? Is that part of the whole system of dams and rivers and
Yeah, so Columbia River, just behind Grand Coulee, right there. So they'll pump it up, and then it'll go into Banks Lake, and that's a massive reservoir. And then it'll go through canal systems and Billy Clap Lake down into a whole network of both big and small canals.
Mhm.
So we're close to the East Slough, so one of the biggest canals we'll pump directly out of.
Hmm.
So it's a really good source of water. I mean, I think 600,000 acres irrigated out of that whole system, and I think we're only using like 3% of the Columbia River. So it's amazing how much water is going through there, and proportionally how little we're actually using of the river to irrigate all that and create economy that's pretty massive in this area. So
and a lot of people fed
yep,
all over the globe, really.
yep, yeah,
Only 3% of the water used.
yeah.
Wow. Um, thinking about all the controversy over the dams and stuff, and a lot of people think, oh, well, we can replace that hydropower, but those dams are so much more than just hydropower, right? Like that, hydropower isn't necessarily for some of the dams in our region the first most important use, right? It's irrigation, flood control, and a lot of those other things. What do those mean to you in being able to farm here?
I mean, that's everything. I mean, that's the only reason people are here. This is a desert. I mean, I don't know how big Mose Lake was before, but it was pretty small, and I don't think people like living here for that reason. The dust blows, and you can't even do dryland wheat really. I mean, you're
Mm.
getting 40 bushel dryland wheat here just because we don't get enough rain. So you completely transform a whole region of the state that produces food, like you said, for the nation, for around the world. So, and then, yeah, families, communities, recreation. I mean, sometimes I complain about it, but the West Siders come over here to kind of get out of the city and fish, hunt. I mean, there's boat, recreation, all that stuff. So it provides for the whole state in a lot of ways. So, pretty amazing area.
What kind of a focus do you guys have on environmental issues with your farm? How much does that? I know it's more and more of a focus of, how are we stewarding the land and water and natural resources around us, and the planet, carbon footprint, all that kind of stuff. People are really focused on. Is that something that plays into how you manage your operation?
Yeah, I think it's both. It's in our self interest. I mean, yeah, stuff gets mandated that we don't always like because they don't make sense and they're pretty burdensome. But yeah, big picture. I mean, we want to take care of stuff. I mean, even a big push on like soil health and uh, raising your organic matter and all that. I mean, yeah, we want to do that. I mean, all that stuff helps us grow crops and keeps things around for. Again, I go back to the generational thing. I mean, there's not farmers typically are like kind of family businesses that they want to keep for generations. So you are thinking long term. You're thinking my kids and grandkids, what are they going to be farming? It's not just, hey, I'm going to take a short term, mine the soil and abuse things just so I can get a short term profit gain. Like
Right.
I literally am shorthanding my kids and my grandkids. So there's like a built in, I think, check on that. And uh, I mean, we're always trying to kind of that balance of, yeah, make more money, but also steward the land. And so you're you're looking at the short term, like my decision to put more manure down or green manure crops might not pay off by next year, but you do know like, hey, this is kind of know the science behind it, and this is good, like a long term investment that will pay off at some point again for future generations. And so
Green manure, what does that mean?
like a plant that's not necessarily a cash crop. So like after I take off wheat or something, I could plant like a legume or something that builds the soil. I'm not necessarily taking nutrients off, but it could fixate nitrogen. It could kind of build the soil, and you're putting it back in. And I mean, that's a real cost. I got to buy the seed. I got to plant it. I got to fertilize. Sometimes I got to water it. All that stuff just to
Plus the opportunity cost of not getting some other crop off of there, right?
right. So yeah,
But that builds the soil, and ultimately you're fertilizing your soil in a more natural way.
yep, yep. So that's a long term play. I can't put that on a spreadsheet and say, hey, I know my costs and I got a 5% return on that investment. Like,
Yeah.
no, but it's still good, and you're thinking long term.
So you guys are doing some organic stuff.
Yeah.
How do you get into that? What does that involve? And is that potatoes or is that other things?
We haven't done potatoes yet. We have another processor down the road that does a lot of like fresh or like processed like sweet corn, peas, and so we've kind of gone the sweet corn, kind of got us into it. And then that's actually my brother's kind of expertise and what he's kind of gotten into. So he's really kind of taken the bull by the horns on the organic, and we've it's a 3 year process to transition conventional to organic, and so it's kind of a long, again, kind of a long view. Like, all right, we're gonna invest in this and probably take it in the shorts and
Hmm.
lose money for those 3 years while we transition, and then, but definitely a big learning curve on it's a different way of farming, and it definitely has its value and benefits and hardships. And I mean, I tried to plant circle of peas this year and had to plant twice,
Mm.
and second time even failed too. So it's
Oh,
it's
what happened?
oh, it was farmed conventionally a long time, and I think there was some like pythium buildup, and because it's organic, you can't put any seed treat on it, so
Mm.
it's I think it just attacks the seed, and
So what's pythium?
it's kind of a like bacteria that's
Mm.
in the soil. I mean,
Some soil
yeah,
pest that
there's
attacks the seed.
hundreds of them that are thousands that are in there that they're everywhere. It's just peas are a little more susceptible,
Mm.
or a lot more susceptible in this case. And yeah, that's organic. I mean, down the road, I did exact same variety with a seed treat, and it looks awesome. So just the cost of doing organic sometimes, I guess.
And such is the way of farming too, right? Where you do one thing and then you try something different and find out, oh, there's this issue, some issue that you hadn't dealt with before.
Yeah,
Always
yeah,
something new.
yeah. And I mean, as long as you're learning from it, I mean, you try to. Sometimes those are expensive mistakes, and yeah, you try to imagine what you're gonna do different next year, even though you the second time planting, I thought I had fixed everything, and apparently not. But yeah, it's that's what's great about farming, right? It's not you're not producing a widget. I mean, it's everything's changing. There's 100 different variables that go into producing a good crop. So there's always something different, and you're always it's like a puzzle, and you're always trying to figure it out, and um, definitely keeps you on your toes, and sometimes awake at night. But it's fun.
So what do you all grow? I guess we've talked a lot about potatoes, and
Yeah,
you mentioned sweet corn, and you mentioned something else
wheat,
too. Well, and you talked about growing
peas.
peas and wheat.
Yeah, sweet bluegrass seed is another big one. So
Mm.
Kentucky bluegrass seed is another big rotational crop. And then we've gotten into organic asparagus is kind of the new growing kind of emerging crop
Mm.
on our farm, which is interesting because it's like a spring harvest.
Mm.
So while we're planting everything else, we're harvesting the asparagus. And
When you plant the asparagus, then
well, that's also
in the
it's
fall or in the middle of winter,
well, we
or
just
what?
actually got done planting
Oh,
another
really?
field. So but it's going to be 3 years till you're in production.
Oh, really?
So it's a
Wow.
long, kind of, it's a perennial crop though, so it could stay in the ground for 10, 15 years.
Mm.
But yeah, that's kind of the latest and greatest on our farm. But yeah, like I said, alfalfa, Timothy hay. Uh, sometimes we do beans if it fits in. Mm,
So it's all about
canola seed. I
oh,
got a field
wow.
of that, couple fields of that.
So it's all about the rotation, or which kind of dirt a given field is, or what kind of makes the call on that?
Well, because potatoes is the big one, we're kind of rotating around that. So you got that every 4 years. So the other 3 years, you're kind of figuring out what to grow. And so sweet corn works really good in a rotation. It's good before potatoes. It builds the potatoes up, the soil kind of before you go into potatoes. And again, some of its markets, we got processor down the road. So it makes it really easy to deliver to them. Wheat is kind of just we don't always like to do wheat. It's not that profitable, but it works really well before bluegrass.
Hmm.
And the bluegrass is good both a soil health standpoint and uh, and seed crops, you can sometimes make more money. So kind of between those solid four, and then you can mix it up here and there. And doing a lot of alfalfa because it transitions really well to organic. So your not number one issue in organic is weeds. So you're just
Right.
constantly dealing with weeds, and so alfalfa, because you're cutting it 4 times a year, you're constantly taking out weeds. So it's
Mm.
a easier way to transition, and you still have a crop that you're hopefully breaking even on or making some money on. So um,
Where does that alfalfa go? I mean, that's baled up as hay, or is it forage, like
yeah, so
silage
it's
crop?
it's also mostly exported too if it's high enough quality. So down the road we got some friends that run a press, and a lot of times we'll sell our alfalfa to them. They'll press it, cube it, put it into containers, and ship it overseas. So like
And
in
they're
Asia and
feeding it to cattle over
yeah,
there,
dairy
or
cows. I think dairy cows is the big one. Sometimes horses, but cattle. Yeah.
mm, so much stuff to keep track of. How do you track it all?
Um, I don't. I can't. um, yeah. No, we got a good team. We got a lot of guys that keep track of different things, and so that's probably yeah. No one person can keep track of it all. That's for sure.
When you
So
came in, coming from the business world and got kind of involved in some of the business stuff here, did you make some changes? Kind of say, hey, here are some new ways of going about things, or how do you manage that kind of stuff?
yeah, I mean, not. I see little things that I could have done. Like I kind of took over IT stuff. I was like, we need an IT company. Like we need
Yeah.
better internet. We need. I mean, people are always complaining about the internet. So I don't know. I kind of just found little things that people had issues with and that weren't up to my standards, I guess. Like
Yeah.
we need good internet here. That's
Yeah.
kind of important.
What does a
Um,
farm need internet for?
oh my gosh. Well,
I mean,
that's
I
a,
could
that's
probably answer that question, but you can probably answer it better than me.
yeah. Well, especially our accounting. We have a really good accounting team, and they're uh, pretty connected with all that stuff. But I mean, you're a big thing that this kind of relates to another issue I saw. Like utilizing technology was like on pivot, like kind of pivot control, having stuff on your like telemetry, having it on your phone. We were kind of it's expensive to get it on your phone. We use FieldNet, so that's a Zematic product, and that's all the circles that we have mostly. But basically, getting the circle panel on your phone, and being able to control it from there was like huge. And I definitely I definitely made a push um, to get that done, and we tested on a few fields. I was like, this is a no brainer. Like this is
So, what can you control then from your phone?
you
Like the
can
actual
yeah, you
irrigator?
can start it, you can stop it, you can set programs, you can set when it stops, you can view it from anywhere to figure out where it's at. If it breaks down, you get a text. I
Mm.
mean, it's just real time, so that and you're not having to drive in every single time, wear and tear on pickups. Uh, it's uh it's pretty amazing, like how much time. I mean, there's sometimes I'm laying in bed, like checking it, and I can set a call a stop and slot so that it stops at a certain time, and that saved me a whole trip out there. Like it's definitely paid for itself, and it's just one of those technology pieces that pretty amazing that I mean, 15 years ago didn't have, but that huge productivity efficiency gains. So,
Does that save water?
uh,
By being able to, make sure that you don't have issues there and you have your timing right for your
yeah,
irrigation?
I suppose it can save. Yeah, yeah, it can say. I mean, you can just be more precise. You can plan a little better. You can make sure it's off when it needs to be, or check it quicker and make sure either it's on or off, or uh, but more so just for the crop itself. If something happens, you can respond a lot quicker if it's on and not moving and watering in one place. And you can,
Right.
I mean, it can just from a crop man. I mean, I think you can do a better job irrigating, get better crops from it for sure.
versus if it breaks down in the middle of the night and just sits there pouring water into one spot and you have a big mud hole and you waste a bunch of water and you have a
Yeah,
big mess on your
yeah,
hands.
yeah. Or if it really needs water and it shuts off in the middle of the night, and maybe I wasn't getting to that field till mid morning, but I can, first thing right there, turn it up. It's gonna get hot and it needs it, and so yeah, your response. So yeah, ideally you should be able to get better crops.
Makes it hard to get away from work though. I guess you
In
could
some
wake up
ways,
in the middle of
yeah.
the night and adjust your irrigation if you wanted
Yeah,
to
no, in
while
some
laying in
ways,
bed.
yeah, but yeah, no, but in some ways it makes it easier. Like I can take off for the weekend and still kind of monitor stuff if I need to, or make some changes, and um,
Spend actually a little bit of time with your family, but
yeah,
keep an eye on the
exactly,
irrigation.
exactly. So I don't know, I love it. I can't go back, even though it costs a little bit,
Yeah.
but it's pretty sweet.
What's been the hardest thing on the farm since you've been back? And farming has its challenges. What's been the most challenging time for you so far?
I'd say just the learning curve is steep. I mean, it's one of those things I want to figure out. I want to solve it a lot quicker than the seasonal, just the seasonality of farming allows for. Like it just takes, like I encounter a problem with planting, like I don't come around to that specific thing for another year. And so it takes me 5 years to get just those five events to happen, as opposed to if it was replicating itself more often, I could really, I feel like, get up to speed quicker. And it just the long process of and it's just long enough a year so that you kind of forget and kind of having to relearn it. And it's just, I mean, that's why these good farmers, I mean, they've been doing it 50, 60 years. They've just seen everything, and there's no book that can
Even though
teach it
them,
to
I
you.
mean, 50 years, that's only 50 chances.
Yeah.
So you got to make each one of those count
Yeah.
because that's a lifetime.
Yeah. That's not very many. I mean, it isn't. It isn't. I mean, yeah, you really got to be on top of it and try to, I mean, ideally take notes, or I don't know. I mean, it's just, yeah, a lot of it's by gut for a lot of these guys, just because they've done it so many times, but it's taken so many years to get to that point. So that's kind of been the toughest thing. I wish I could learn way faster, and it's just sometimes slow.
You set some kind of record or something with wheat growing, right?
Oh, you saw that, did you?
Yeah. What was the story there?
Uh,
As a potato grower, well, obviously you guys grow wheat on your
yeah,
rotation, but it sounds like you've really kind of honed in on some cool stuff that you're doing with growing wheat.
yeah. So I kind of became the wheat guy a couple years ago, and like I take this on and manage it, and so I did, and I kind of was looking around, and I saw that competition. A lot of the winners were coming out of this area, and it's like, man, what are we missing something? Like they're literally miles away, and they're getting yields like that, and
What was the competition?
it's
Like,
just a national wheat yield competition. I mean,
so it's like to see who can get the most off
uh,
of an acre or how?
yeah, I mean, it's small plots, so it's like 3 acre test plot that you gotta set it aside, harvest it, weigh it, have it certified by kind of a third party, and if it's a if it's high enough, you can win the competition. So it's not like a full field, but it's still kind of a small sample size. And so anyway, I saw that. I saw some of the agronomists who were involved in that, and just kind of reached out to him like, hey, we grow wheat. Can you help us out? And so brought him in, and uh, yeah, and he, like, first year we kind of took part in it. We kind of combination of picking the right spot, good year, good field, and yeah, won it with, I think it was 180 bushels to the acre. So yeah, not that the whole field did that, but that 3 acre plot did it, and yeah, it's cool. Won a trip to San Antonio, and yeah, kind of fun for the farm, I think, for the guys to see that. And
So this is what the highest wheat yields in the
in the
country?
nation, yeah,
Wow.
for certain class, so it's irrigated spring wheat
Mm.
is so as opposed to either dryland spring wheat or winter wheat or irrigated winter wheat, all that. So in that class, it got the highest. But yeah, yeah, kind of amazing because we're kind of potato growers, so I think it was kind of surprising for the guys. Like, oh,
Yeah.
okay, because we do other crops pretty well too, but it's
Yeah.
kind of fun.
Something like that, though, does that change the way then the things that you discover when you're doing that? Does it change the way you farm the rest of your wheat from the little test plot, or
Yeah, we definitely made some changes, and I mean it's small sample 1 year. I mean you kind of take that with a grain of salt. Like I
right?
need to replicate that for a few years, different fields, see if we can kind of get the same results. But yeah, yeah, made some changes to the program, and again, I think our farm was more like, hey, we're not going to spend a ton of money on wheat. It's kind of low cost. Let's just plant it and because we have to, and it's a good rotation, but not
Right.
spending a ton of energy time on it. So um, yeah, kind of took it over, and I'm still learning a lot, and that was part of it too, is bringing in somebody that can kind of teach and kind of compare notes with and see what they're doing. So yeah, it was helpful, and uh, yeah, kind of icing on the cake to win something like that too. So
Yeah. What did the longtime wheat farmers in the neighborhood say to you about that? We're like, what are you doing, you young buck?
uh, yeah,
You
no,
got lucky.
yeah, pretty much. Yeah, no, it's sometimes I think it was lucky, but no, it's a good area. I mean, like I said, this area, I think some of the neighbors have won it before, and it's at the right latitude. We got the right temperatures. I mean, it's got good water, soil. It all kind of adds up. And I mean, I listened to a deal yesterday. I think UK and New Zealand are the kind of highest kind of grossing wheat yields
Mm.
in the world, and the guy in New Zealand got like 250 bushels or something. So anyway, that kind of puts it in perspective. There's still a
Yeah.
long way to go, but it's pretty amazing
So
that
now
you
are
can get those
you
yields.
gunning for 250 bushels?
Sure, yeah,
Think you can do it? That's like
not right away. We'll
unheard
get
of in
there.
the
I'd like
U.S., isn't it?
if I could even get to 200, I'd be happy. Yeah,
Wow,
I don't know if that's ever happened in the U.S. Probably not.
that's amazing though. The
Yeah.
amount of wheat. You ever see yourself moving back to the city?
No. Nope.
Couldn't do it.
No. I've been back to LA a lot since then, whether vacation or visiting people, and yeah, no way. Too many people, too much traffic. I like the country life.
What about
No
farming?
traffic.
You gonna stick with this farming thing, or
Yeah.
can you see yourself ever doing something other than farming?
No. No. I mean, I honestly, I've never. I mean, I just don't even consider it anymore. No thought put to like, yeah, if I didn't do this, what would I do? It's
Yeah.
no. This is pretty much it.
You came in, with your dad kind of eyeing retirement. Was he able to retire then since then, or is he still?
Uh, he thinks he is. I don't know. I don't. He's trying to, but he still gets away. I mean, like I said, he got into flying, and so he definitely finds his time away. So he's not necessarily involved day to day, but he's still helping make a lot of the big decisions, and I mean, he knows everything so well that he can do it pretty quick and usually pretty good at it. So,
What does he think about having his boys moving in to be running the show?
well, he keeps telling us to hurry up and do it, but I keep telling him he has to get out of the way first if we want to do it. But no, I mean, and that's part of the struggle too. Just that transition. I mean, that's a big one. Like, how do you transition a farm to the next generation? And we've gone to different seminars on
Yeah.
succession planning and all that, and yeah, it's always easier said than done. Or
Financially, it's complicated enough.
yeah,
But then on top of that, you've got, I think, like you were alluding to, the personalities, and your dad has his life invested in this. a huge amount of expertise. You don't just like hand over the keys and say, "Well, see you later, have fun."
Yeah, no way. No way. I mean, like I said, yeah. I mean, he built this up. He spent his whole life on it, so he wants to make sure it's in good hands. So, but he's also kind of tired of it, and he doesn't want to take the risk anymore, and he wants to go play and have fun. And so it's yeah, it's definitely interesting. I mean, I think it's good, but it has its challenges, and there's some hard conversations and conversations where you need to bring in a third party to help mediate and help figure it out. But
Yeah.
we all know that that's just part of it. Like I said, we've heard enough about this issue that you need help, and you need to have a plan, and ultimately you just need good relationships. I mean, you can have all the planning in the world, but if you can't communicate and get along and
Yeah.
try to assume good intent of the other person and all that, it's just not going to work. So luckily all the siblings get along. We have a good relationship with our parents, and if you have a good foundation, I feel like we could work through it. But you try to do your best to not miss something or set yourself up for failure in 20 years. But
What about your kids? You think they'll farm?
I hope so. I
Will you send them
Yeah.
to college in LA like you did?
Yeah, well, yeah, that's a really interesting question. I've struggled with that because I think my dad did. He didn't want us to go to LA. It's like how are you going to become a farmer if you're living in LA? You're not even going to ag school. Like,
So
how's this going to happen?
he
Like,
wanted you to be a farmer all
yeah,
along.
oh yeah, and I mean, and I want that for my kids, but it's also you let your kids choose, right? I'm not going to force them into it, but now that I'm a parent, I'm like, I could see I want to guide them in the direction that I think they should go, and obviously corresponding with their gifts and talents and desires, and but I don't know about like the message of, oh, you can do anything you want to do or be anything you want to be. Not sure I'm on board with that message.
Mm.
Maybe I'm wrong, but
Well, I think
um,
our generation got a large dose of that, and I think a lot of us kind of found out that some of that isn't true.
yeah,
I don't
no,
know
it's
for those of us who are, I guess, millennials or whatever.
it can
That was
be
the mantra, right, when we were kids, and I think some people are. I mean, that's still out there a lot, but some people are kind of like, no, like you like there are good, better things to do and worse things to do, and you
yeah,
need to be smart about it, and you need to invest in your future rather than squander important years on stuff that may not really be truly your long-term passion and occupation.
yeah, yeah. That's a tough one. In my mind, if I can expose them as much as possible, I mean, kind of like I was. Yeah, they might have different interests, and when it actually, I mean, they love working out on the farm, going to work with me, driving the pickup, uh, working harvest, pulling vines out, shoveling. I mean, yeah, they do it for 20 minutes and move on and feel like they worked all day. But
Yeah.
and when it actually comes down to when they get older and actually have to put in a hard day's work, it won't be as much fun. But I don't know, you kind of a combination of you're gonna do this at least for a while. Like I want them to have a good work ethic no matter what,
Yeah.
but not so much that they get so turned off and hate it that they don't want to come back. So it's a little bit of a fine line.
Yeah.
I don't know. Well, I guess we'll cross that bridge when we get to it. But yeah, I think exposure, get them out here, um, and then yeah, I think getting them involved at some point, give them jobs, figure out what they like, create a lot of like just positive associations with it, and where it's not just the farm is like this negative thing that, oh, I just have to do manual labor all day and I pull weeds and I hate it. Um,
Yeah, there's a lot of different things to do on a farm,
yeah, yeah.
right?
So I definitely see the struggle that my dad had, and I'm trying to grapple with the same thing. But I don't know. Figure I have enough kids, one of them will come back. But we'll see.
You feel pressure to carry on that legacy that your dad started?
Uh, Not really. I mean, if I think about it, Yeah, there's some.
Yeah.
I don't know about pressure. It's probably a good thing. Like, yeah,
Yeah.
you wanna. It's just fun working with family. It's just when it works, there's nothing better. So why wouldn't I want that for my kids? And then and there's something like referring to earlier. I mean, there's something about the rootedness here and having that family network that's close. And I mean, I didn't have any cousins, no extended family close, and all of a sudden, like my kids have 14 cousins and another 10 cousins on it. I mean, there's such a close network, and
Mm.
it doesn't really work if you're spread all over the country. So yeah, I want my kids to pursue what they're interested in, but I also don't want them on the East Coast. Like that's just it's hard to do life or stay connected.
Yeah.
I mean, even technology, yeah, it helps a little bit, but it's just not the same thing as physically being present around that person. And so I think the farm is kind of a it's a cool thing that you're not moving it around. It's here to stay. And so there's I think that'll always and like it was for us, it's just kind of a magnet that I think will draw people back. Again, as long as it's not dysfunctional and loving because you can swing the other way where it's people are moving across the country to get away from family because it's so messed up. And I
Yeah.
that's kind of the number one priority, create
Yeah.
a safe, loving home that they always want to return to and know they have a job at the farm. And so kind of combination of those things. I guess I don't worry about it. I'm not fairly confident they'll want to be close to us, want to be by us, and whether or not they work on the farm, they don't have to. But
Well, thanks for sharing your story. There's a lot of cool stuff you guys have going on here. And I could sense it right away when I drove onto the farm. Just the signage and the people here, and it was a really positive vibe. So I could tell that you guys really
good,
care about what you're doing here.
good. Yeah, no, it's hopefully a good place. I mean, you don't know what employees are saying behind locked doors, but you
Yeah.
you hope you create a culture that they look forward to coming to work to
Yeah.
and feel taken care of and kind of feel part of the family. So
And I appreciate you being willing to open up and share the personal side of all of it too.
yeah, yeah, my pleasure. Thanks for having me.